met her a week ago at a wedding.
Who is this?
It's Abe. How you doing?
Abe?
From the wedding.
And?
I'm in love. Hey! It's me, Abe.
What are you doing here?
I asked her to marry me. Miranda, I want to marry you.
Uh-huh.
She's thinking it over.
Man, I gotta say, what is it about Todd Solondz that his parents didn't give him when he was growing up?
Man, I tell you, Todd Solondz is great at making those movies that make you feel uncomfortable and not in a Quentin Tarantino way, just kind of like, ugh. So I came into this one ready for that too. And I left going, man, fuck this movie.
Really? You really hated this?
I won't say hate, but I did not like it.
Well, because out of this film, Dark Horse, I got much the same thing I get from all his other films. You get really nasty, dislikable, unlikable characters who are very thoroughly and uncomfortably fleshed out.
Yeah. What does that have to do with Dark Horse comics?
I was going to say, why did they get a movie made about him? All they did was adapt Aliens and Terminator for 20 years.
Hey, those are great comic books, man. Aliens vs. Predator, Terminator, all the hits.
Is this co-host's entry and point into this discussion?
Yes.
No, this is actually a story about Abe, who is a overweight 30-something real loser, just a schlub of a fucking guy. He still lives with his parents. Christopher Walken plays his dad, who is... Oh, it was so sad to see him. They've schlubbed up Christopher Walken to a point.
They got him wearing a bad toupee.
Yeah, like a bad toupee, pants up to his his navel.
Yeah, up to his tits. He's wearing old man pants. Yeah, he's playing like a old man, like this guy's dad. I mean, this guy is what was he 30-something?
Yeah, he's 30-something. He's way too old to still be living at home and working.
You're talking like a fat Jewish guy who works for his dad. Like, he works in a professional real estate office, but he comes in dressed like a wigger just because it's his dad's. He doesn't have to. He thinks everything is everybody else's fault.
Yeah, he's
totally obnoxious. He spends it. His dad's like, "Hey, son, you got those reports I asked you about?"
I'm working on it, Dad.
I'm working on it, Dad.
Yeah.
You come around to his computer. He's bidding almost $500 on a Thundercats toy.
Yes, I will pay to see that.
So
where do I sign up?
Okay.
Basically, he's
you need to slow down.
Come on.
Not thinking.
Let's go, guy. Who wants to take my money?
He is not. He is nowhere near. Even on your worst lockout day, he's not as bad as you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the thing is, like,
who is?
You start out watching, you go like, man, what a fucking loser this guy is. I mean, he's nerdy to the point. Like, he's nerdy in that way that, like, at first, like, I'm like, wait a minute. Do I have any tendencies like this guy? Because it's just scaring me a little bit.
Well, his problem is that not only is he so incredibly entitled, everything's been handed to him in this mediocre little schlubby life he's built for himself in a room covered with like Simpsons dolls and stuff.
It's all Simpsons and Thundercats, his room.
And not only is he living in an illusion, at one point he says, "Oh, I'm not a fucking geek. I don't have any Star Trek stuff."
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I say.
Which I hate to say is not the dividing line.
No.
But anybody who disagrees...
Can I get something here? Can I get something here, though? Do you find out later on that he likes little boys?
No. It's not one of those.
Actually, it doesn't go that far.
Actually, compared to most Todd Solondz films, it's relatively clean.
Right.
In fact, his biggest problem is that he just yells at people to get anything he wants. He's constantly on the verge of a heart attack, basically. Give this guy another 5 years, and sure enough, an aneurysm is gonna take him because he's constantly just screaming at anyone who's even mildly.
You're talking about a 35-year-old man who has the mentality of a 7-year-old.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Nice. His mother doesn't help at all, played by Mia Farrow, who's totally just a shrew of a woman herself, who does, honestly, she just loves the hell out of her.
You thought she was a
kid.
shrew? Because all she does is mollycoddle him.
Well, she yells at her and she backs down immediately.
Yeah.
And she just goes, "Yes, honey, whatever you want, honey. I love you."
Oh, you're not using shrew correctly.
I am using shrew correctly.
Shrew is somebody who like screams.
I'm not talking about taming of the shrew. I'm talking about like a shrewish, like
you mean like a little mouse,
like a mouse. Yeah.
Okay, well you don't use it that way. I mean they're Jewish, but they're not. She's not shrewish.
She's shrewish.
You don't mix those two things.
You know,
up.
at this point, I would have loved to see a scene where he's looking at his computer and all you see is the Leog front page. That would have been awesome.
I wouldn't have been shocked.
or let's do this.
But you know what? If the thing is, if he was somebody who was on Spill, he would be like one of our trolls.
He'd be one of the guys who was like a huge member for the first 3 months he was on,
Yeah.
and then got banned because he wrote some outrageous "Fuck you guys! I can't believe you know what? You don't like the Dark Knight Rises? Fuck you, you dumb cocksuckers, piece of shit!" It's that guy.
Yeah, the guy who would be talking about like find out addresses and threaten to burn down our homes.
Yeah,
So we didn't
exactly.
agree.
By the way, Cyrus, that was me. But yes.
But in this story, he ends up meeting this girl at a wedding, like in the opening scene where he's sitting next to Selma Blair, and they both have have these expressions of just like the worst sort of world-weary, like, non-existence.
Now you have to understand, this is a Jewish wedding
Yeah.
where everybody on the dance floor is like a hip hop dancer. Like they're pulling all kind of like crazy moves, doing spins and carols, like cartwheels and stuff.
Yeah.
You're like
Standard
watching, like, God damn, this is a happening wedding right here.
Isn't that standard protocol for a Jewish wedding?
And they're sitting there, and he goes, "I don't dance," and you're thinking, "Is that no shit?" But he decides because like she's not dancing either, that they must have some sort of bond. So he basically stalks this girl who is almost a hollow shell. Really, I mean, she is so broken from shit that happened to her in her life that there's barely any personality.
She's
left
so
to her.
clinically depressed. It's not
Yeah.
even like all she does is just sit around and cry.
So despite the fact that like it's very clear that in fact she flat out says she's not physically attracted to this guy in any way, and who would be?
Yeah.
She just kind of goes along with it as he like courts her and basically tricks her into being his fiance by forcing her or by force of will.
Yeah,
right early on, like first date.
like
Wow,
she's clearly trying to
okay.
blow him off, but he just shows up anyway with flowers, takes her out. He goes like, "Hey, you know what? I'm thinking. I got this crazy idea. Don't answer yet, but let's get married." It's like the first
That's
date.
it. Yeah? Wow, that easy to get in Selma Blair's pants. Huh? Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, if you watched other Todd Solondz films, it seems pretty clear that yes.
Oh, that girl's dirty. I've seen her in other
The
films.
thing is, it's like, look, even old Selma Blair looking like she does now is way hotter than any girl he's ever going to get. But the more you spend time with her, you're like, dude, I think even you have to pass this up.
I know. How can you get an erection from this girl?
Yeah.
It's like fucking
Yeah.
a piece of cardboard.
There's no scene where she's going, "Fuck me, geek."
No.
No. It's like you're marrying a picture of a sad clown.
Seriously, as two-dimensional as that as well.
Yeah. I think
that
And the
guy's
thing
kinda
is,
funny.
There's
Yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact they just didn't put much makeup on her at all, because there's lots of close-ups of her where she just looks old and tired and just, man,
It's
the
sad.
idea that she had sex with this dude is haunting. That's the most disturbing thing. It's not that they don't show it to you like usually you would see in these Salons
Yeah.
films. Thank God you don't see it. But just the fact that you know that it happened is enough to make you leave the theater with a haunted look like she's got all the way through it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And sure enough, this is a film that is to some degree about comeuppance with this character, as he does in fact have to suffer for the type of person that he is as shit starts to fall down around him. The only real problem I have with it at all is that it seems that once it gets to that point that it wants to start saying, okay, here's where all the chips are falling, it starts going down a surreal and dreamlike path that isn't in touch with anything that's happened in the movie before this, and it's almost like the director can't decide whether he really wants to punish this character or not.
And I think ultimately that's what really soured me on the movie. I mean, the thing is, when it starts, like Cyrus saw it first, and the way he described it to me, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm all over this. I can't wait to see this movie. But actually spending time with that character, it's not fun. It's fun at first because you're like, wow, what a complete loser. This guy makes me feel good about myself. But after a while, you're like, you know what? I don't like hanging with this guy. I mean, because everything he's about, you learn it early on in the film, and he's quite two-dimensional. The thing is, I only felt sorry for him in as much as I was like, I believe this guy's manic depressive, and he needs medication. It's not just that he's an asshole, but he's ill. But the longer it went on, there's a point where you go like, fuck, ill, whatever. I don't care. I don't like this guy, the situation I don't like. And it doesn't go anywhere until it gets to a point where it's like, all right, well, now we're just going to start heaping shit on him over and over and over. And I'm kind of like, I've kind of checked out. I'm not caring. It's not moving along. It's not waking me up. It's not doing anything terribly interesting.
See, I was with it with that, though. It wasn't until it just became kind of wishy-washy about, is it real? Is it not real? That I was like, come on, this is not the kind of movie where that was appropriate to do at all. I mean, it makes you sit through all this. There has got to be one hell of a point.
Yeah,
to all
a good payoff.
Or there's got to be, let's really watch this guy that go through the trials and come out of it on the other side having learned something. And whether the ending is the way it seems to be, where it's kind of pointless. Like, oh well, that was just. I'm not sure why we why all that happened.
Yeah.
What he was trying to say by that, or if indeed it was all just a fantasy, in which case, same situation. Where was the demarcation point where it goes off to fantasy? I don't even know.
I think they do make that kind of clear. I mean, I understood that, but I still didn't like where I think they do make that kind of clear. I mean, I understood that, but I still didn't like where I ended up. It's kind of like I thought back to that movie, A Serious Man. Was that not the right? Is that the right one? The one with the Coen brothers?
I think so.
Or is it Single Man? No, it's A Serious Man. That's the one where you have that character, and it's like like God or whatever is heaping shit on him. He's going through all these things. I still found myself like really into that movie. I liked the actors. I liked what was going on. It was interesting. It just had an ending that made me go, man. But with this one, it about 15, 20 minutes in, I was like, you know what? This ain't the Coen brothers. It's Todd Solondz is not the Coen brothers. And this one was made on the cheap, even for a Todd Solondz movie.
That's true.
I was just kind of like, if this isn't going to move on, I want it to just be over. And then it had an ending that kind of reminded me of A Serious Man. I was like, wow, I got that same ending without having the artistry that led me to this point.
I mean, the thing I will say, though, is that this is... there does need to be a mirror held up to modern day entitlement, especially when it comes to the geek crowd.
Oh yeah, especially for the another man child.
Yeah, exactly. And this is sort of this is Todd Solondz's man child film in which he's saying, hey man, man child, they're not funny.
No, exactly.
They're sad, and somebody needs to call them on their bullshit. And I really was actually appreciating the fuck out of this film for the first hour of it based on that. But once again, like I said, there's this whole weird thing where the secretary, who's this little mousy woman, shrewy, mousy, whatever.
Mousy.
Suddenly turns into like a femme fatale out of nowhere.
I kind of like that.
And I was like, this is interesting. Where is this going? And the answer is nowhere.
That's
Yeah,
what it seems like with this guy's movies usually, though. Like, he'll introduce things just for the sake of introducing a weird, quirky character. But, I mean, as far as what you guys are telling me, it seems like he always seems to come from a place to where he writes these characters, even though, I mean, we look at him as like just not pleasant characters, not people you want to be around. But it seems like sometimes he tries to justify their existence by not having them have any kind of comeuppance or anything like that, to where you're like, are you rooting for these guys? Or are you trying to show everybody that these people are messed up? I never get the message with this movie.
Well, and where you're right about that, where and I always kind of like that ambiguity. Mm-hmm. There's no ambiguity here. There's definitely a comeuppance.
Well,
it happens.
but there is to a certain extent. But even so, there is that point where the movie starts going off into what has to be fantasy, and it's not really clear why it chose the point that it did. I mean, sort of is, but even then, it's kind of a back and forth, and then the very, very, very end seems to like undercut the entire rest of the film.
It really does.
In like one last gut punch joke that I was like, okay, I admit it's funny, but at the same time, then what's the point of the whole rest of the film?
And that's how I felt, because the point you brought up about him showing a mirror to like going like, look, this whole man-child thing, it might be funny. You might think it's funny when Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler's doing it, but in real life, it's not. It's fucking annoying and sad, and it needs to stop. And I was like, yeah, man, it's a lot of people should watch this and go like, wow, I don't want that to be me. But it goes to a level of cartoonishness toward the end where it lets those people off the hook. It makes it too easy for them to go like, oh, well, that's not me. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
All right, let me go back to what I was doing.
So let the assholes be the assholes and everything. Yeah.
I like Star Trek. That's not me.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't know that guy.
The thing is, I normally really enjoy what Todd Solondz does, as much as you can say you enjoy his films while you're watching it, which generally you don't. It's not until after the fact when you're kind of deconstructing in your head, you're like, oh, that was really clever and that was smart. I like the way he did that. I mean, his films are exercises in many ways. I mean, they certainly
they are.
They feature really unpleasant people stuck in really unpleasant situations, and some of which, people you never want to know anything more about, like The Happiness, dealing with child molesters and stuff.
Well,
which is his masterpiece.
Yeah. Well, I saw his last movie, and his last movie had to do with another character molesting kids, and I'm just like,
which was a sequel to Happiness.
That was the sequel to Happiness. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, why do I keep paying money to see this guy's fucked up movies? I feel like I need to go turn myself into the police. Going, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm always always watching this guy's movies with fucking child
But I'm grateful.
molesting going
I'm
on.
grateful that there's somebody who actually isn't afraid to deal with characters
Same
who
here.
are these people that no one else will touch. I mean, because like it or not, there are real child molesters out there. And
Oh, I know.
terrible people. These entitled children like this. These are real fucking people who are out there, and they're goddamn all over the fucking place. And this guy tells stories about them. I mean, that it makes him stand apart. And more often than not, he does actually have something to say that's interesting. Here, he's undercuts himself by his own sort of snarky jokes at the end.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it does hurt the film. I didn't dislike it as much as you did, Leon, but I can only defend it but so much once I got to the end. So I'm going to give this ultimately a high rental.
Okay.
Because I think it is worth seeing. And Salons fans are going to say, yes, I'm glad I saw it, but you're not going to put it in the high echelon of his material.
No. And when I talk about this movie being on the cheap, they shoot a bunch of it at Toys R Us where he keeps going in trying to get a refund on an action figure that had a scratch on it.
Wait, you telling me Jeffrey gave him the keys to the kingdom as far as where children are hanging around?
No, because even though they shot at Toys R Us, they clearly didn't get the clearance. So every time he goes to Toys R Us, the logo is very obviously blurred out.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
And there's never anyone else.
There's nobody ever in the store.
Good.
Yeah, man. For all the reasons I named, I really want to like this. And even us talking about, the things that are good about it, it frustrates me even more how it undercuts itself. It's like, damn it, if somebody could have made that movie that would have made a statement about these kind of people, he would have been, Todd Solondz would have been the guy. And he himself blows it or drops a ball or just started out with an idea and didn't know where to go with it. And it is only the performance of Jason Barth. Is that the main character's name? Because that's what it's going to save it from me giving it just a some old bullshit. Because I got to say,
Jordan Gelber.
God, I was completely off.
Yeah.
Jordan Gelbert. But he does a great job. I mean, to make you feel the way you do about this character, him just acting like a baby and being so entitled and throwing tantrums and having no clue about what's going on. The only time he has a clue is when people in his life come to him as fantasies to talk to him and go like, that girl is out of your league. Stop doing this. He pulled it off. But man, fuck, I did not enjoy watching this movie at all. So it's a low rental.
I'll just say this. This is one of those guys that you would know from 100 yards that you wanted nothing to do with him. He drives a yellow Humvee.
Oh.
He wears pink polo shirts.
Oh, no.
And has big like bling necklaces with his name around.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Come on, you got the guy some slack.
I'm telling you, man, it's one of those things where he goes to work and everybody's wearing suits and doing their professional job, and he comes wearing
Sweatpants.
Yeah, sweatpants and a hockey jersey, and because he's the boss's son, he gets to get away with it. And you just watch that, and you just grit your teeth like, you son of a bitch.
Nice work if you can get it. I wonder if he's the son of someone famous.
If it wasn't for my dad, I could have been a singer. Now I'm even too old for American Idol. My whole life it's been lies.
Abe, honey, no one ever lied. We'd written you off as a failure years ago.
You're a cheapskate and a freeloader.
They're my parents. They need me.
No one needs you.
Don't leave us, please. Where are you going to go?
I haven't decided yet. Maybe France. Not that I'm an expert on these things, but maybe you should start taking a little less medication.